오늘은 6.25 한국전쟁 72주년을 맞아 특별한 영상을 준비했는데요. 국가보훈처의 도움으로 영국인 참전 용사이신 알란 가이님과 함께 이야기를 나눠봤습니다. 19이란 어린 나이에 18개월 동안 한국전쟁에 참전하시고 지난 20년 동안 영국참전용사협회의 연락관으로서 일하시면서 영국에서 한국전쟁에 인식을 올리는데 힘을 쓰고 계시는데요. 멋지고 유쾌하신 앨런님과 함께 좋아하시는 한국 음식을 먹으면서 뜻깊은 시간을 보내게 됐습니다.
Alan, thank you very much for coming and meeting with us.
No problem.
Well, today we're going to be trying some Korean food,
Wonderful.
which I've heard you have quite a lot of experience with.
Oh, I certainly do. So I've got, I think it's 14 tins of kimchi in my cupboard back home.
In your kitchen? Fantastic. Well, we heard that you recently saw the footballers trying a 계란찜.
Egg souffle. That I've never tried.
So we'll order that today, and hopefully a few other things that I think you'll like.
Willing to try anything.
This is the 계란찜 here.
I did look up the recipe.
Oh, really? I love that. That's fantastic. It's quite hot, be careful.
That is nice.
Yeah.
I must get the wife to make.
Yeah.
I'm starting my diet again tomorrow.
Thank you so much, like I said, for coming. I think we're really curious just to hear a little bit about your story.
Yeah.
You were born in Liverpool?
That's correct. I was born in 1932. At the age of 17 and a half, I joined the army
And how did you get to Korea?
by boat, which took 5 weeks. And we stopped places like Gibraltar, Algiers, Hong Kong, Singapore. I knew somebody would do that.
That's right, don't worry about it. And had you heard of Korea at all when you joined the army at that
Never
time?
heard a word.
Really?
Nobody knew about Korea.
Of course.
Although in my exams I qualified in geography, still had never heard of Korea. I went there in January 1953. It was absolutely devastating.
Really?
Really was. Yeah, no buildings worth talking about. It was a bit of a shock, shall we
Right,
say.
well, when you arrived in Korea, it would have been winter in January.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah. I saw
cold.
2 winters there. And we'd arrived in just battle dress, no special winter clothing. You saw the way we had a shower with the major standing above you with a hose.
Well, I was about to say, was that in Korea that happened?
We had a stream running alongside, and he used to say, "Right, lads, bath time,"
Wow, it must have been quite an experience.
and a bit cold sometimes.
I imagine so, in January, goodness. Should we try a little bit of kimchi jeon and a little 해물 파전? Would you like a drink as well? Have you had soju before in Korea?
Oh yes. One of our veterans who tried soju for the first time, he thought it was a soft drink.
Oh, God, dear. Oh,
And
dear.
without a word of a lie, he fell with his face in his meal.
Well, maybe let's skip soju today then. Yeah, we could do some makgeolli to go with the jeon. I don't know if you've had makgeolli.
I haven't, I'll try it.
I'll just give you a
Oh,
little.
it's milky.
It is. Does look very milky, yeah.
Yeah, with your good health.
Alan, indeed. Thank you to you. Oh, there you go.
I didn't expect it to be so not spicy, but
It's a little bit fizzy.
yeah,
a little bit fizzy.
Nice. I thought it was going to be milky.
Yeah. There's a bit of 해물 파전 as well if you'd like to try that.
It's nice.
Oh, it's got a good crunch. And you were a medic, I believe?
Yeah.
Your unit was in charge of taking care of the health of all of the Commonwealth soldiers. That's soldiers from all over the world.
Yeah, I went to all the frontline units, the Welsh, the Vandus, the Australians.
Yeah.
My job was preventive medicine.
Okay.
My job was to go around to all the troops up at the front line and give advice on how to prevent them getting anything like frostbite, malaria, and so on and so on. People who were getting frostbite, our advice was warm them gradually. And that's when you found out who your best mates were, because we used to advise them to get your best mate to open his shirt and put your feet inside his shirt to warm it up.
Slowly warm it up.
And that was one bit of advice. Towards the end, there was a disease called hemorrhagic fever. And we couldn't find out what was causing it. And we thought it may be ticks that were either on rats or on birds. So we had the job of going out and catching live rats.
No.
And
Wow.
And they were talking this size.
Goodness me.
And we used to cage them. And then they'd be sent off to an American laboratory.
I mean, it's fascinating because when we think of war, the first thing that comes to mind is, the people on the front lines in firing weapons and planes. There was so much that went into that war effort, and units like yours that was enabling these soldiers to fight for Korea's freedom were so essential. I mean, the Korean War in general, I think, is still, there's so much that a lot of people don't really know.
People don't realise that during the Korean War, we lost 1,106, which is more than the Falklands, Iraq and Afghanistan put together. Wow. But you try and get some publicity for the Korean War. A couple of years ago, 70th anniversary of the Korean War, nothing,
Wow.
We came home, I think the problem was, it was so close to the end of the Second World War. People were fed up with war.
Okay.
And you came home, you had no homecoming events. I arrived home quite close to midnight, and there were no buses, and I lived 5 miles away from the railway station.
No, wow.
So I went to the local police station, and I said, is there any way you can get me home?
Wow.
And he said, I told him I'd just come back from Korea, and he said, you're a soldier, walk. And I had to walk home with a kit bag on my back, 5 miles.
That's after getting home from the war.
Not by Korea, mind you. Korean, it's embarrassing. They look after us so well. Really? I mean, I think it's 40 veterans and their wives go back to Korea every year. All expenses paid, treated like lords. They've never forgotten and never will. Thinking back, you were doing a job. Right. You went, if it hadn't been Korea, it could have been somewhere else. But in your own mind, you're helping a beleaguered country. Something evil has happened to an innocent party. Yeah. Can we help? Yeah. And I was quite happy to go to Korea when I found out where I was going and what it was going to be for. And I'm proud to have done that. Yeah. Because I meet all the veterans from all around the country. Yeah. I don't remember any of them saying, I wish I hadn't gone there. I've never heard that. They've all said, what a wonderful people the Koreans are. Yeah. I mean, I just went to Kingston and there was a young Korean guy standing next to me, and I said to him, are you a Korean? He said, yes. I said I was in the Korean War. And the next minute he's slapping me on the back.
It feels like an old friend. Okay, well, we've got some more food. Next up, we have a kalbi-tang. The kalbi's been stewed for quite a long time, so it should be quite tender. You see the little chunks of beef here.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, there you are.
I know who's going to be jealous. That's my son.
Oh, really?
He loves Korean food.
Oh, really? That's brilliant. How old is your son now?
63.
Wow.
You've got to try a bit more of that before I go.
The keranjim, yeah, please, help yourself. I'm so glad you're enjoying the food.
Keranjim, I'll remember that.
Keranjim, that's it, that's it. Do you remember when you first went back to Korea?
Oh, it was many, many years afterwards. It would have been probably the early 90s. So the big difference. When we were there was only one bridge over the Han. But when we went back, of course, there must have been about 30 bridges. And then I went back during the time of the football.
Oh, the World Cup?
The World Cup, yeah.
2002.
When you built, I don't know how many stadiums.
Yeah, of course.
Well, we built one, which is Wembley, and took a long time doing that. All we keep saying is, we did a job. The Korean people are the ones who've done all the work to make such a wonderful country. With regard to the revisits, we've still got people who suffer from what was called in shell shock in those days, post-traumatic stress disorder. We had one person, a Gloucester, who had been caged as a prisoner of war and he sat on the coach next to me. And his wife said to me, that man has not had one night where he hasn't woken up screaming in the night since he came back from the Korean War.
Yeah.
And he was shaking.
Wow.
We went up to the DMZ, came back. The following day she said to me, do you know, this is the first time that he'd had a good night's sleep.
Wow.
You know, he's laid the ghost.
Right.
And so, you know, these revisits to Korea probably do the same for many, many others. You know, and I think back, if I hadn't been to Korea, I would never have become the Korean Liaison Officer,
Right.
which I've been doing for 22 years. What would I be doing now? I'd probably be sitting at home with a shawl over my knee, watching the television, trying to read a book or something similar.
Yeah.
You know, whereas I'm very active.
Yeah.
I get phone calls almost every day. The embassy came to me and said, would you like a memorial? Now, the only memorial that we had was in the crypt, which is not really available to the public.
No.
So for about 3 years, we went to the royal parks. We found a place outside the Treasury. That fell through.
Gosh.
And eventually they said, would you like a site on the Embankment Gardens outside the Ministry of Defence?
Wow.
So what better place?
Yeah.
On the day where it was unveiled, I was lucky to have tea with William. So now we've got this wonderful memorial, thanks to the Korean people.
Take your time. Oh, yeah,
I don't know if
please.
you want to look at these.
Yes.
Well,
So I heard you have some memorabilia from the war that you've brought with you.
that was when I was in Korea.
Oh, look at that! Wow.
Young boy.
You look just the same.
Well, this is an unusual one. It's a strange thing that happened.
Okay.
I wrote a poem.
Okay.
I was at my daughter's in South Wales. Went to bed of a night, just went to sleep like normal. No thoughts of career, anything at all.
Okay.
And suddenly I woke up and there were these words. They were bombarding me. The way I look at it, I didn't write it, somebody wrote it for me. So I got up and I couldn't find a pen, so I got the wife's eyebrow pencil
Okay.
and some toilet paper. And I started jotting down the words I could, you know, like bullet points. And in the morning, I was able to put these into some form of, you know, some shape.
Yeah.
It long forgotten by their country, men who fought on a distant land, some who died in mortal combat, slaughtered by a foreign hand, young men wounded, young men crying, young men bleeding and young men dying. Was their sacrifice in vain? Were their efforts worth the pain? Happy children, so beguiling, laughing, jumping, skipping, smiling, now fill the land of morning calm. All are safe and free from harm, thanks to every mother's son who fought for each and every one, and showing that despite the pain, their valiant efforts were not in vain. That's it.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you so much for sharing that. God bless you.
Don't bless me. I mean, who gave me those words?
Alan, it's been so great hearing your story. I know from every Korean that I've ever spoken to, just the level of gratitude towards yourself, to all of your fellow troops. You know, you've been back to Korea.
Three times.
You've seen the country that it's become.
Oh God, it's wonderful. Yeah.
And I think, you know, there is definitely no doubt in anyone's mind that all of that is thanks to the efforts of yourself and your fellow troops.
We're not looking for anything apart from recognition that we exist.
Of course. Is there anything you'd like to say to any Koreans at home watching this?
Just to thank you all so much for all that you do for all our veterans. I mean, we're so grateful. Nothing we feel that we can repay you at this stage. I know you will say, well, you did enough for us. But no, since you're not only doing it for us, but it's for our children, our grandchildren, and no doubt it will continue for a long time to come. And I would like to end by saying to my granddaughter, happy birthday today.
Brilliant.
오늘은 여기까지.
여기까지. 안녕. That's bye. Bye-bye. Thank you so much, Alan. We really appreciate that. Would you like us to see if we can get some of this to go?
That would be
Yeah?
brilliant. Yeah,
Absolutely,
wonderful.
yeah, why not?
Yeah, I'm sure my wife would like that.
That poem was so moving.